Welcome to Rolling in Rhythm Part 3, where we'll be focusing on compound time. So examples of compound time signatures are 3/8, 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8. The thing about compound time is that for the first time in this series of videos, the beats are not evenly divisible by 2 or 4, they're actually divisible by 3. So in 6/8 time, which is the time signature we're going to work in pretty much exclusively today, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but there are sort of 2 beats per bar, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a. So we'll be counting 1 and a, 2 and a, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the reason why is because most of the snare drum music that you're going to encounter that's written in compound time is written at either march tempo or JB tempo, which is to say somewhere between 92 beats per minute and 132 beats per minute. And if you recall from Rolling in Rhythm Part 1, it makes the most sense to use 16th notes to divide the beat into 4 motions per beat. We were doing 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2. So that's what we're going to have to do today. And in order to divide beats into 4 even parts, we need to use something called a quadruplet or a quartuplet. It's kind of like using a triplet when we're in simple time, except now we're in compound time, so we're forcing the beat to be divided into 4 equal parts. And that's what we're going to do for dotted quarter notes and dotted half notes. For the 8th note, on the other hand, we're just going to use 16th notes, because even though moving our hands in 16th notes, for example, in the dotted quarter note, if we were to move our hands in 16th notes, we'd have to move them 6 times within 1 beat. And that's really fast and it's a lot more work than necessary. However, with an 8th note, there's no way for us to divide the beat into multiple motions any other way, and just using 1 roll motion for the 8th note is not enough. You won't actually be able to connect the 8th note to the release of the roll, and the 8th note will not sound like a sustain. So we're going to be using 16th notes for the 8th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll have a variety of different exercises to walk us through this. So the first thing we need to do is get our counting into shape so that we can switch back and forth between doing 3 8 notes per beat and then a quadruplet or a quartuplet in a beat. So here is one example of an exercise, and we're just going to do this for the purposes of counting and getting our motions defined and getting our motions evenly in time. So in the first half of the exercise, we have a normal bar of 6/8 in which we have 3 8 notes and then a dotted quarter note. And then in the second bar of the exercise, we have a quadruplet followed by a dotted quarter note. So we're going to have to switch between counting 1 and a, 2 and a, to 1 E and a, 2 and a. So we're going to do this exercise 4 times on the practice pad at 120 beats per minute. And we're going to try to count 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a whenever we're not doing the quartuplet, and only count 1 E and a when we do the quartuplet, so that we're getting used to shifting gears back and forth in between the two. So 120 beats per minute, here we go. 1, 2, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 E and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 E and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 E and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 E and a, 2 and a. So here's the next exercise. It is 4 bars long, and everything's just stretched out to be twice as long-ish. So we're going to do an entire bar of 6/8 with 8th notes, followed by a downbeat, and then nothing for the rest of that bar. And then we're going to do an entire bar of 6/8 note with quartuplets, and then a downbeat and nothing for the rest of that bar. So we're going to count 1 and a, 2 and a, just as before the entire time, with the exception of when we do the quartuplets. So we're going to do this one 4 times as well at 120 beats per minute on the practice pad. 1, 2, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1, 2, 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 1 and a, 2 and a, 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 1 and a, 2 and a. And for our last counting exercise that we're going to do before we actually get into the rolling, we're going to force ourselves to switch between doing normal 8 notes in 6/8 time into doing 2 quartuplets in 6/8 time, and then we're going to have a downbeat and nothing for the remaining 2 bars of the exercise. So it's still a 4 bar exercise, 1 and 2 and followed by 1E and 2E and followed by a downbeat, and then lots of rest so that we can kind of reset our brain to go back to the beginning of the exercise. 4 times on the practice pad, once again at 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1, 2. So the first roll length we're going to do today is the dotted quarter note. And if you watch Rolling in Rhythm Part 1, you can tell that this exercise is almost exactly like the quarter note exercise from that video. It is in fact exactly the same in terms of what your hands do, but it's very important to continue counting in compound time, in 6/8 time, while you do this exercise. So we're going to do the exercise 2 times on the practice pad and then 2 times on the drum. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're counting 1 and a 2 and a as a means of getting us into the exercise. That's sort of the count off that we do before starting the exercise, and then we do 1E and a for the hand motions, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a for the rest, 1E and a for the roll hand motions, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a for the rest. And you can see the quartuplet written out underneath the exercise as well, just as before, so you've got the hand motions reminding you of what you actually do during the roll. So first we're going to do this one at 96 beats per minute, and then we're going to do it at 120 beats per minute. So 96 beats per minute, twice here, twice here. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 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 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a. Okay, same exercise, the dotted quarter note roll. Doing the quartuplet, counting 1 and a every time we need to do that, and the rest of the time we're going to be counting eighth notes in 6/8 time, this time at 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and a 2 and a 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 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a. Alright, so now we're going to do a dotted half note roll, twice as long as the dotted quarter note roll, and we're basically going to be using the same approach. So because the roll is twice as long, we're going to be doing twice as many motions, 8 notes instead of 4 notes, 2 quartuplets instead of 1 quartuplet. So you can see the exercise here, it's a 4-bar exercise. In the first bar we have 2 quartuplets, 1E and a, 2E and a, followed by a downbeat and then nothing for the rest of that bar. And then we have the half note roll with the quartuplet motions written underneath, and then a downbeat and nothing for the rest of that bar. And you should be, during the second bar and the fourth bar when you're not actually playing, you should be counting 1 and a, 2 and a. And you should also count yourself in at the beginning of the exercise, 1 and a, 2 and a, in order to make sure that you're forcing yourself to switch gears back and forth between counting in 6/8 time and counting the quartuplet motions we have to do for the roll. So we're going to do this one first at 96 beats per minute, twice on the practice pad and twice on the drum as per usual. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1E and a 2E and a 1 and a 2 and a 1E and a 2E and a 1 and a 2 and a 1E and a 2E and a 1 and a 2 and a 1E and a 2E and a 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. Same exercise. Dotted half note roll, so 1 bar of motions, 1 bar of a downbeat followed by nothing, 1 bar of the roll, and 1 bar of a downbeat followed by nothing, this time at 120 beats per minute, alternating the counting method back and forth between 6/8 time and quartuplets. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 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 2 and a 1 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 and a it to end up. And then for our next note length, we're going to be doing an eighth note. And this is a very common one that you will see in 6/8 time, 9/8 time, 12/8 time, etc. And most of the time, almost all the time, you're going to see it written as a pickup to beat 1 or as a pickup to beat 2, but you'll almost never see it starting on a downbeat. You'll see it leading into a downbeat. So here is our exercise. We have a standard 6/8 rhythm for the first bar, and then a downbeat, and then nothing until the 6th, 8th partial of the second bar, followed by roll on that 8th note leading into the downbeat, and then nothing for the remainder of the exercise. So the exercise is going to sound like this: 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and the motion for it is going to be 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and a 1. So we're going to do that exercise 4 times, twice on the practice pad and twice on the drum at 96 beats per minute to start. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, a 1, 2 and a 1. And rolling now, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2 and a 1. 2 motions again, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2 and a 1. 2 rolling now, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2 and a 1. To the drum now, 1, 2, and rolling now, 1, 2, 2 motions again, 2, 2 rolling now, 2, 2. Alright, same exercise that we just did, the 8th note roll pickup on the 6th, 8th partial of the second measure, except this time we're going to do it at 120 beats per minute. We'll do it exactly the way we did it last time. Twice here, once with motions, and then once with rolling, once with motions, once with rolling, and then exactly the same repetition on the drum. At 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and a 1, 2. Rolling now, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and a 1, 2. Back to the motions, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and a 1, 2. And rolling, 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, and a 1, 2. On the drum, 2, 2. Rolling this time, 1, 2, 2. Back to the motions, 1, 2, 2. Rolling again, 1, 2. Okay, exercise 1. The first exercise that is going to require us to switch between 6/8 time, just playing normally 8 notes in 6/8 time, directly into doing a roll. So we have 6 8 notes, a bar of 8 notes, and then we have a dotted quarter note roll, and then a downbeat, and then rest. And we don't have a repeat sign, so we're just going to kind of repeat this exercise. We're going to do the exercise, and then we'll do a count off, and then we'll do it again. And we're going to start this one off at 96 beats per minute. We're going to do it twice on the pad with the motions, then twice on the pad with the roll, then twice on the drum with the motions, then twice on the drum with the roll. So here we are at 96. 1, 2, 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, again, and 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, rolling this time. 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, again, and 1 and a 2, and a 1 and a 2. On the drum now. Motions. 1, 2, again, and 1, 2, rolling now. 1, 2, again, and 1, 2. Okay, so the same exercise that we just did, this time we're going to do it at 120 beats per minute, but we'll do it the same way. Twice on the pad with the motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling. And we're switching our counting from 1 and a, 2 and a to 1 and a for the roll, and then back to 2 and a, etc. Here we go, 120. 1, 2, ready, and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, again, and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, with rolling now. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. 1, 2, again, and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. On the drum with motions now. And again, and Okay, so here's exercise 2, and what we have is a dotted quarter note roll, just the way we had in exercise 1, except that the roll starts on beat 2. So if you were to start that bar with the dominant hand and do alternating sticking, you would end up leading that roll with the non-dominant hand. So you can see what I've done with the sticking to compensate for that, to correct for that. I've put a double stroke in beat 1 of the second measure so that we end up leading the roll with the dominant hand, which in my case is the right hand. So you can do whatever sticking you want, but this is the sticking that I would recommend. So we're going to do this one twice on the pad with motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling at 96 beats per minute. To start, 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2 again, and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, rolling now, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2 again, and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, over to the drum now, 2, motions again, 2, rolling now, 2 again, and 2, 1, 2. Same exercise we just did at 120 beats per minute this time, but we'll do it as before, so twice on the pad with motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, rolling now, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, on the drum, 2, motions again, 2, rolling now, 2 again, and 2, 1. Okay, so here is exercise 3, and I'm trying to gear these exercises to prepare you for the kinds of rhythms that you're going to see written into compositions that are written in compound time. So we have a dotted 8/16th rhythm in the first measure, then we have a half note roll in the second measure, and then in the third measure we have a downbeat followed by an eighth note roll pickup to a downbeat in the fourth measure. We'll do it twice on the pad with motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling at 96 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a. Again. Rolling. And on the drum, now, ready, motions. Again. Rolling. Again. Okay, so here is exercise 3 again, and this time we're going to do it at 120 beats per minute. Twice on the pad with motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling at 120. 1, 2, motions, and again, rolling, and drum, again, rolling, again, Alright, so for exercise 4, it's very similar to exercise 3 in that we have a dotted half note roll. So the long roll is the same length, except that it has to be written as 2 dotted quarter note rolls tied to one another because it bleeds over a bar line. So in bar 1 we have the same dotted 8/16 pattern that you would often see in compositions in 6/8 time. And then in bar 2, I've written in a double stroke in the left hand so that we can lead the roll that starts on beat 2 of bar 2 with the dominant hand, carry the roll through into the next measure, end the roll with the dominant hand with release on beat 2, and then an 8th note roll picking up into the downbeat of the next measure. We'll do this at 96 beats per minute, twice on the pad with motions, twice on the pad with rolling, twice on the drum with motions, twice on the drum with rolling. 96. 1, 2, ready, and. Again. Rolling. Again. On the drum. Again. Rolling. Again. Alright, so here's exercise 4 again. We're going to do the same thing twice here with motions, twice here with rolling, twice here with motions, twice here with rolling, this time at 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, and. Again. Rolling. Again. On the drum. Again. Rolling. Again. Okay, so for exercise 5, we have a couple of sticking modifications that we've done in order to ensure that we're leading rolls with the dominant hand. So at the very beginning of the exercise, we have a dotted 8/16 pattern, the same pattern from previous exercises that I've said pops up often in snare drum composition for compound time. And then in beat 2 of the first bar, we're doing a double stroke on the left hand to line us up to execute an 8th note pickup roll starting in the 6th 8th note partial of the first bar with the right hand, leading into beat 1 of the second measure, where we have another double stroke in the left hand to line us up to lead the next roll with the dominant hand. And that next roll is a dotted half note roll, but it's notated as 2 dotted quarter note rolls tied together because it bleeds over a bar line. And then the release of that roll gives us ample time to prepare to execute the next 8th note pickup roll leading with the dominant hand. So we're going to do this exercise at 96 beats per minute to start. We'll do it twice with the motion on the practice pad, twice with rolling on the practice pad, twice with the motion on the drum, and twice with rolling on the drum. So here we go, 96 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, and. And. Rolling. And again. And on the drum, now, ready, and. Again. Rolling. And again. Okay, and exercise 5, now at 120 beats per minute, but we'll do it the same way we've been doing all of these exercises. So it's going to be twice on the practice pad with motions, twice on the practice pad with the rolls, twice on the drum with motions, and twice on the drum with the rolls, 120 beats a minute. 1, 2, ready, motions. And again. Rolling. And again. On the drum.